Okay. All right. So hopefully you guys are on your way to completing, or at least thinking about completing the land use analysis assignment. Hopefully you haven't been running into too many struggles with that. I know one of the areas people are emailing me about is the landscaping section, which can be a little bit complex. There's more information in the landscaping section than maybe some of the other sections that has more details in it. So what I would recommend is taking a look at, and I think it's the land development code. If you go to Muni code and look up, it's 6.06. Hold on, I'll tell you which ones. Is it? You guys know which one? Okay, so if you look at, section 6.06.06, and that's buffering and screening requirements. And that'll have a lot of landscaping information. So take a look at that because it can get in depth, but it breaks it down into the different screening requirements based on the different types of use and the abutting uses and that type of thing. So because where we try to create buffers, landscape or otherwise, certain ones are required based on the certain, uses that are side by side. So you would want, for example, if you have a commercial building that's being constructed or whatnot, and it's adjacent to, say, a residential multifamily or whatnot, then you're going to have a bigger buffer, bigger screening area than you would for, say, a commercial next to a commercial, or commercial next to industrial, that type of thing. So just keep that in mind. So take a look at 6.06.06. You can also do a search in Municode at the top and just type in landscaping and or landscape, and you'll actually see it come down. So the search tool for Municode is invaluable. It's really great, and it's a lot easier than when I started and had to go through this huge binder. I mean, the thing was huge. And you had to page through that thing, and I had so many post-it notes all over through my land development code when I'd use it for the county and stuff, and now we can just use the search engine, which is great. So if you have any problems with that, just let me know. Okay. All right. Any questions before I move on?
Yeah, or I was wondering if you had any resources that showed how the Hillsborough County land use table was formatted, because I'm looking at it now, and I'm going over the columns, and a lot of them are just letters, and I don't see anywhere on the document that where what specifically what land use cases can do what. So I'm talking about in row 3, and then looking at the columns, it says AMAAR. If there are specific resources that you can direct us to or provide that can give an explanation of what they are, because I think that for me, that's kind of the last component I'm missing, is specific what land, what the parcel can actually, what you can do on the actual parcel.
Okay. So those codes are tied to the land development code itself and the different type of zoning category. So, and I'm actually glad you asked that question, because let me pull up the land use table, and we'll get everyone on the same page. Let's see. 1 second. There's the land use table. Okay. Rotate it. All right. I'll share Okay, the land use table with you. Okay, so you guys see that it's, I'll zoom in. I think I understand your question. So zoom in. Okay, so you're talking about these right up here, right? So you're talking about AS, RCS, and then you got the numbers down here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So these are zoning categories. And so the way they tried to make them easy is because you have AM, which, you know, is agricultural, I think manufacturing. Well, I'll show you how to find those. Agricultural, AR, agricultural residential. And then you have AS here, which also is a zoning category. And there's an AS 0.4, there's an AS 1, and then there's an ASC 1. So same thing with these. I think this is, I think there's residential, single family, conventional, I believe, is that what that means? And again, I'll show you how to find those. But there's an RSC, RSC 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 10. Each one of those has a different, you know, a different use to it, or at least a different regulations to them. Okay, so the way you would find those is pretty easy. So you would, let me jump out of this, and you're going to go into Municode. Let me pull up Municode here, and I'm gonna start from the beginning of Municode. I'll show you guys how I get there. Okay, share my screen again with you. Okay, so here is Municode, municode.com, and you're going to okay, you're going to go to the Florida, and then you're going to go, you can go H, or you can scroll down, Hillsborough County. Let's see here. Okay, and then you're going to go to Land Development Code. This is the one you want to go to. Okay, everyone see that so far? And so what you're going to look up is zoning districts, right? So standard zoning districts. If you go here, you're going to see all of these. You see what I'm saying? These are the categories right here. Every single one of those that are on that table, they match up. So remember I said like RSC, which is residential, single family conventional, RSC2. And so if you go back to the chart, then you'll see, you know, RSC2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10. Okay, that makes sense? Okay, so that's going to be your description for each one of your zoning categories, and all of them are located here. Now, if we go back to the table, and by the way, you can, for your for this, the Municode for the Land Development Code, which is on Municode for Hillsborough County, you can type in the, you know, the zoning up here at the top. You can type in say, we'll just do agricultural, and I'm just going to type it the way it is here, single family, and you're going to see all of the information about single family zoning and what's required, what's not. You can also type in AS, let's see, so you can also type in AS, or let's see, yeah, so AS-1, and you can look for that, and you'll come up with the different ones here. It will highlight, and you can find out the, you know, what's required for ASC1 and 2, and, you know, all of those things. It all is, you know, laid out right here in the Land Development Code. Okay, now the land use table is a very helpful tool. Let me jump back to that again. And that's a quick snapshot of what is allowed in those zoning categories. So again, if you're looking at RSC, you know, 2, if you're scrolling down here, RSC 2, you'll see P for permitted. So RSC 2, P is for permitted. C is for conditional use. That just means that there has to be certain provisions. If you meet these parts of the code, then you are allowed to do it. These are S's for special exception, and all of these, by the way, are up here, so you can see what they all mean. Conditional use, permitted, and you can actually even look up this article if you wanted to, and it gives you more information. But you scroll down, and what you're looking for is what is permitted. So you're looking for P for permitted, beekeeping in this case, and you can go on and on and on. Community residential homes, type A. To find out what type A means, you'd have to look in the land development code to see, you type in type A, community residential homes, type A, and it will tell you exactly what it is. And then on and on and on. So does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking that question. I think that might clarify for a lot of people, to be honest with you, because we kind of went over it, but I don't think we really went over it in depth. So I'm glad you asked that question. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Good deal. So we'll go ahead and get started then on chapter 10. And so everything I just talked about with the land development code actually leads back to community or urban design, right? So everything in the land development code, you hope that in a land development code it provides for good urban design. But we're going to talk about some of the things that you look at whenever you go into urban design. So let me once again share PowerPoint presentation. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about urban design. And like I said, this is probably one of my favorite chapters. And we'll talk about what it is, some of the processes, how you really gather information for creating a good urban design and that type of thing. We'll talk about some neo-traditional design and some cities of the future. That's, and that's really kind of a little bit vague, but we'll go into some of those areas. So first off, we got to know what it is, right? So cities, of course, they develop over time, and it's really because of conscious and really sometimes unconscious acts of people. Urban designers, they assume that in spite of the vast scale and complexity of things, that cities can be designed and their growth, really shaped and directed by a few things. The book talks about Baron Haussmann, who lived in Paris from 1950 or 1855 to around 1864, 6, 8, something like that. And he focused on the rhythm and order of a street, and he addressed the problem of the flow of traffic and its connection, his overall connection to the land. Because obviously traffic is a big deal when it comes to urban design, right? And he also shaped the skyline with height restrictions, understanding that height of buildings actually does make a landscape. It could make it better, or it can also sometimes make it worse. So he also focused on those type of things. So it's really, urban design really kind of falls between planning and architecture, and it deals with large scale organization, and it deals with design of a city. It deals with massing and organization of buildings, how they're placed within a community, and then even the space in between them, like we're talking about before. We talked about setbacks and buffers. It really deals with that type of thing, and it deals on a large scale, not small scale. We're talking about bigger cities or bigger towns or communities, not like a neighborhood setting. Now, the caveat to that is sometimes for urban design, sometimes you have very large residential communities, right, that have multi-use or mixed uses within them. So in that case, you're talking about when you talk about urban design, you can incorporate some urban design principles into those type of communities. So urban designers and the urban planners, they all have contemporary roles, right? So, but they have, even though they have these distinct and contemporary roles, they also have separate and distinct functions to them. Urban designers, they deal with parts of the city. Urban planners deal with larger regions. So again, large cities, sometimes where communities expand beyond boundaries, borders. And urban designers are generally, they're hired by developers for different projects, but they can also work in the public realm as well. And they view massing of things. They do view spatial organization of things. Planners, though, they view things on how cities function on a larger scale. So when I talk about urban planning, and as the book kind of organizes things that I'm talking about now, that's transportation, that's housing types and locations, where parks are going to go, and where schools are going to go, and your central services and that type of thing. And urban designers are really becoming more prominent professionals in communities on a bigger scale as well, which is not a bad thing. I think it's actually a very good thing. And a growing percentage of development is taking place within PUDs. Now, the book discusses their planned unit developments. They're also called planned developments. And we talked about this a little bit in previous chapters. And that is just the, laying out a plan, showing where certain things are going on a larger scale. And again, not on a small scale. So, planners, they usually they try to work hand in hand with urban designers. A growing percentage of development is really kind of starting to take place as a PUD, where you have urban designers and urban planners as well. And so therefore the design of the site has to have most of the time we try to make it have a uniform theme to it. And so a lot of this overall is market driven, right? It's like if you build it, if you realize that people are wanting certain things, you're going to build it, and then they're going to come. So it is market driven in some ways. Okay, then we have the urban process, and this will look similar to the previous chapter that we talked about, where you have to do analysis. You have to look at gathering your basic information, such as your visual surveys of areas, identifying hard and soft areas, and doing a functional analysis of areas. Basically performing an evaluation of areas and then implementing the overall plan. So these are strategic planning. This is strategic planning 101. And we talked about this in the previous chapter. So just be familiar with those. You have to gather basic information. This is the analysis of a site to determine the overall characteristics. That includes land use, population, transportation, natural resources and natural systems, and of course, topography overall. So problems and design goals are identified as well. And you can look at the chapter for the list of some of those problems and design goals. Visual surveys. These are some of the things that you need to recognize that are part of this whole thing. So visual surveys. This is the idea that people create, when they have create a mental map of an area, and people have a positive and negative feelings about their community based on certain things, right? Think about how in your own communities, what are the things that you like and what are the things that you don't like? Okay, you might like the park that's right down the road from you that you use all the time. You might like the fact that that the school is close by, that your kids can attend, and there's sidewalks all around. What don't you like? You might not like the fact that traffic is a big one, that there's a lot of traffic within your area. You might not like that that a commercial strip is right on the main thoroughfare right outside of your community that is starting to deteriorate and isn't being maintained. those type of things. A visual survey is really finding those positive and negatives. And then you have to identify hard and soft areas. And this is the determination in which parts of a city can accommodate growth and change, and what parts are essentially fixed because they are occupied, and those areas that can be designed, right? So hard and soft areas that really has a big impact on just right off the top of my head, just transportation networks, right? So if you're talking about transit systems, incorporating different types of transit systems into a community, those areas that are considered hard areas are more difficult to incorporate those type of systems within the community because those things are already in place. The only time you're going to really, you can make modifications is if someone either moves out, you purchase a property, something gets demolished, something changes. But those are very difficult. Soft areas are those areas that are being developed where you can start from the ground up, and you can start working in multi-use type of transportation systems within that area. And then you have to do functional analysis. Now, this is the type of analysis that looks at relationships, of activities among existing land uses that you have in your community and the way they relate to the circulation systems overall. Then you have synthesis that happens. Now, this is the step in which design concepts are created that understand all of the constraints and propose solutions, right? So you have to look at it's almost like a SWOT analysis. So where you look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's almost like that. It's where you look at an area, you look at where some of the constraints are, you look at where some of the advantages are, and then you can kind of create a plan around that. And it also can be a relationship between, say, housing units, number of pedestrians, knowing where you put your sidewalks and width to roadways based on, the current conditions, speeding, etc. So it looks at all of the solutions, potential solutions to problems. And then you have evaluation. So this step requires looking at all levels. This is looking at your original goals and your problem definitions, and it's determining whether they meet all of the demands and will ultimately gain public acceptance. Because remember, we talked about it previous chapter that if you don't get public acceptance to your plans, then it's dead in the water. You're not going to go anywhere, right? So, and you also have to, political acceptance, but the first start is getting public acceptance. And then, cities and counties, we have to identify, recognize rather that they're all changing, and so that makes development solutions very challenging. And as a planner, you definitely run into those challenges all the time. And then that kind of gets us to implementation, the implementation stage. This is where financing is very important, and also construction is devised. So generally speaking, projects are phased and they're modified to meet zoning ordinances that are in the land development codes. And once an urban design plan is developed, it really is implemented using land use controls, again, from the land development code, and capital expenditures, making sure that you're able to pay for the things that need to go, be put in place for certain developments to occur, such as, say, for example, water, sewer, drainage, transportation networks, that type of thing. Okay. So what's good urban design? Well, that all really depends. And, urban designers, they intend to improve the quality of people's lives through design. That's the overall goal. And good urban design is really when a plan is implemented, and it really looks at all the challenges. It looks at the solutions that are created from those challenges. And the judgment of urban design includes analyzing the unity and coherence of how things are laid out, the minimum conflicts between pedestrians and vehicles, you know, protection from noise, rain, wind, that kind of thing. You know, easy orientation for users, and compatibility of land uses. Of course, that's very important, as we've been talking about throughout the entire semester, and the availability of places to rest, observe, and to meet. Like, you know, having, say, for example, having parks, you know, in place. So those are very important. And then creating this sense of security and pleasantness, right? No one wants to live in an area that, you know, doesn't make them feel safe, doesn't make them feel like they're in a, you know, in a community, and it's actually some place that they can enjoy when they're not, you know, working or whatnot. So the neighborhood concept that the book talks about, and really a neighborhood is a unit that matches the daily scale of most people's lives. So a neighborhood plan, it will include, you know, housing locations, it will include amenities, transportation networks, and also major thoroughfares that, you know, serve as neighborhood boundaries. So you'll generally have the thoroughfares that are on the outside of neighborhoods that connect to the local streets that, you know, where you can go and live and, you know, live, work, and play, generally speaking. So then there's this new urbanism that has started popping up, and Andres Dewani, he created a neo-traditional design called new urbanism, and this was the new, for a long time, it was the new planner term, and you know, really it spawned from neo-traditionalists. They believe that suburbs were designed incorrectly originally due to the overemphasis of automobile transportation. I think you can see that. I think anyone can see that throughout many places within the United States. And so, you know, to help resolve some of that problems, especially some of the newer designed areas, this whole new urbanism really starts incorporating and looking at transportation networks. It starts looking at alternative transportation types, incorporating sidewalks, putting you know, residential units close to you know, offices and commercial centers and that kind of thing, having a more friendly, safe design for people to get around, and really, you know, that those places where you can look at and you go, yeah, you know what, I wouldn't mind living here, right? So another neo-traditionalist that the book talks about is Frank Lloyd Wright and Broadacre City. So be familiar with that. And Joel Garreau, who is talks about edge cities, and more information about both of those folks are in the book. And I'm sure you've heard of Frank Lloyd Wright. Actually, one of the biggest collections of his architectural works is actually located at Florida Southern, in Lakeland. So if you're around Lakeland, you can stop by there and take a look at some of the architecture there. Okay, so Peter Calthorpe is another person, and he is credited with transit-oriented development. And that's really a concept that means that a high density area is laid out in a way that that every residential unit, every home, can get there within a 10-minute walk of a transit, right? So it's that idea that if you have, you know, a whether a subway or some sort of a trolley system, above ground rail system or whatnot, you can get there within a 10-minute walk. And so it's a good concept, but going back to, you know, kind of that you know, the areas that have a more of a hard design to them already, you have already homes put in places. You already have residential, I'm sorry, commercial and industrial, and cities are already designed outward. It sometimes can be difficult to do something like this, but the idea is great. And there are a lot of places in the U.S. that actually have a transit-oriented type of design to them. But a lot of them are located in Europe because that's just the way they were built. So Broadacre City, we just talked about that. That's Frank Lloyd Wright. And essentially, this is it's a four square mile community, is what he kind of came up with. And it was the idea that a community starting from scratch by, it basically gave U.S. families a 1 acre plot of land from federal land reserves, from which Wright could, kind of conceive this idea. He conceived the idea that a community would be built with these 1 acre plots of land. And it's totally different from this neo-traditional design or transit-oriented development, because he had his own unique architectural design. If you look it up online, his architecture is very unique for sure. You can actually almost spot it right away. Oh, and again, one of the largest collections of this type of architecture is Florida Southern College in Lakeland. And then Joel Grow, which we talked about, the Edge City Central Business District. It's really a ring-like pattern. The book has I think a picture of it in the chapter, and really it's where a community builds outward. So you start with rings. So you have an open space, you have houses, you have agricultural lands, you have a central business district right in the middle, all within a walking distance with one another, and then you have a network of roadways that extends outward to other similar type of cities where they also have a central business district, and then you have the rings of residential and agricultural and that type of thing. So that was his idea of an edge city. Again, the book goes into more details than that, so just have an understanding of what those are. And then we had Le Corbusier. Now he proposed something called radiant cities, or cities of the future. Actually, I think he wrote a book called Radiant Cities, and this design really started incorporating the high-rise concept, so that you could incorporate more people in a smaller area, preserving more area, providing more open space to areas. His idea was to reduce the need for transportation, a lot of wide roads and these large transportation networks, and to preserve open space, because he felt that it was good for someone to experience the outdoors when you wanted to. And so it was a very, very standardized, very symmetrical look. The picture on the screen kind of gives you that idea if you're looking at it. He had a huge influence on modern urban planning that you can kind of see to this day in the design of these high-rise, high-density housing projects. Downtown Tampa, we've got a lot of the multi-family high-rises that are being built right now along with the Water Street project, and so a lot of this concept was created by Le Corbusier. So, and that's it. That's all for chapter 10, and I will stop there. And if I get my mouse to work here, there we go. I'll stop there. And does anyone have any questions regarding that chapter or anything else? We'll open up the floor to take up. Matt.
Okay, I had a quick question. So when you were talking about the transit-oriented development, you said like everything was within 10 minutes, like more or less, but that made me think, is it more, so would like the 15-minute city idea like be built off of that, or is that kind of separate? Because I know I've like heard a lot about that. Like,
yeah, the 15-minute, there are different concepts. There are plans that are, where you stick your compass in the middle of a city and then draw a circle around and go, okay, in this area people will walk. Okay. In concept, that's an idea. I think the 10-minute city is an idea. I think to design a certain area to claim that it's a walkable community. Sometimes they extend that. Frankly, in my opinion, I think to get someone to walk, within a 5-minute walk is difficult anymore, but the same concept is there. Yeah, we actually have, we're working on a plan in Hillsborough County right now. Our transportation folks actually are working on it within Gibsonton or rather not Gibsonton, the Palm River area to create a walking a 10-minute walking plan essentially to try to make sure that there are facilities available, sidewalks, bike lanes, make sure that the land uses that are still green spaces that haven't been built upon yet, that those are created logically and that type of thing. So yeah, the idea is great, but for some reason people don't like walking. I don't, they just want to hop in their cars and drive to a place. But I say that, but not every place is designed to be pedestrian friendly either. So understanding that some place might be walkable, in theory, but they may not have sidewalks or bike lanes, and you may have to cross a busy road to get there, and so that doesn't help, right? So, yeah, good question. That's yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, I mean, we've all been to places that are, I mean, do you guys see as we talked about these different types of designs? I mean, have you guys been to some of these places that we're talking about that are just you can get out, you can walk around and not have to worry about driving your car, or on the opposite side of things, those places that you go to and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm taking my life into my own hands here, by walking, anywhere. And so we've got to take an Uber, we gotta rent a car and that kind of thing. You guys been to places like that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Pinellas County.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, the only new development that happens in Pinellas County is when you they do redevelopment. That's the only new development is redevelopment. But you're right. I mean, it's crazy. I think I might have told you guys this, and I'm feeling like you and I are just talking, Matt. No one else is turning on their camera. I feel like it's just you and me. I'm trying to shame people into turning. There we go. There, it's Alex. I knew she was gonna turn on her camera. All right, but you're not driving, right? You're parked. Oh, okay, good. All right. No need any crashes on. Well, no. So yeah, that would be bad. Wouldn't that be bad? I'd be the only professor at USF. Someone crashed while listening to their course. Don't listen to this course while operating heavy machinery. Don't do it. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I had my son talking, but I was gonna say though, Chicago. I'm from Chicago, and I feel like Chicago, especially downtown. But I feel like you don't need a car there at all.
I love Chicago. That
too.
is one of my favorite places to go. My wife and I's favorite place. We love Chicago. It's fantastic. I did here's a humble brag here. I did the marathon there, and I just love. The people there are great. The transit is great. You're right. I mean, you get to your place. You get downtown. You don't have to rent a car. You just walk everywhere. I mean, it's great. I love it.
It
love
is.
It. Yeah. And that is the mecca for planning, by the way. It is the mecca for planning. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, I was gonna say something. What was I saying, Matt?
You're going to a story about something about Pinellas County.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So I'll give you a story about Pinellas County. So Pinellas County, like you said, Pinellas County is just really a rough place to walk in a lot of places. I mean, it's really tough. I think US 19 for a long time, I think still is one of the most dangerous roadways in the state. I mean, in the country. I think what was it? I think it was US 19 and I want to say Coachman Road up in the north part of the county. I believe that was for a time. I don't know if it still is or not. That was it was ranked in the top 10 most dangerous intersections in the country. It was not a great place. Not a great place. A lot of people have died at that intersection. I used to live a long time ago. I used to live down the road from that intersection. It's not a great place. And so there have been, for the longest time, the Florida Department of Transportation, they they plan for roads, okay? And during a meeting with the FDOT, as when I worked for the city of St. Petersburg, I was the city trails project manager. Basically, I was the bicycle pedestrian coordinator that managed all of the sidewalk projects and all of the bike lane projects and the trails projects for the city of St. Pete. And we had a meeting with the DOT, and they were expanding a roadway. And so in this meeting, we said, hey, look, fine, we understand your need to expand this roadway because the traffic count was growing and there was a lot of congestion there. But we said, you've got to incorporate some sensible sidewalks and some sensible crossings, and also in certain areas you got to connect up to our trail system and this and that. Us saying that, it garnered a response from them that said, oh, well, look, we understand, but we plan for cars, not for people. And that is the wrong attitude to take, obviously, right? Because you don't plan for cars, you plan for people, right? I mean, people are in the cars. You certainly don't want to make a dangerous environment for automobiles or for people who are walking on the sidewalk, because what happens is someone in that automobile hits someone, that changes their life forever as well. And so we tried to explain that to them, and for the longest time that was their mentality. Now, fortunately, they've changed that somewhat, so that's a good thing. And so we were able to start getting, even when I transitioned from there to working in the private sector, we were able to work with the DOT in certain areas and have them incorporate sensible sidewalks and bike lanes and trails systems and that type of thing. But it's challenging, very challenging. Yeah. But Pinellas is rough. Oh, that's a lot of areas in Pinellas is really challenging too. Yeah. And thank God that a hurricane did not hit Pinellas,
yes.
and because that would have been really, really rough. Yeah, for sure. Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I have one more comment, just because I'm really wanting to do well on this project. So I've still been confused about what we put in the reference location portion, because I basically have all of the first column filled out, but I don't really know what to put in the reference location. I think we talked about it a little bit, and it just, when I looked up the GIS for Hillsborough County, it just took me back to the original website. And so I'm just looking for a more concrete example, if that's all right.
Sure. Yeah. No. I'm no any question at all. I think so for the reference portion. So first off, were you able to get to the map viewer?
Yes, I was able to get to it.
Okay. So the reason I have the reference column is two reasons. Number one, I want to know where you found the information. Okay, so if you a lot of that stuff, the first portion of the table, you're going to get a lot of that information from the map viewer. Okay, so you would put map viewer in there. For the second portion of the table, a lot of that is going to come from the land development code. So I want you to put, where you found that. So, for example, for the, like I go back to the landscaping stuff you're going to find in 6.06.06. And so you're going to place that there. You're going to say, oh, this is where I found this information. For the different, say the top table for the uses, let me see here, I pull up. So for the top portion of the table where you have nearby zoning and all of that, that's obviously going to be the map viewer, right? For description of existing neighboring land uses, so what is actually on the ground, you're going to use Street View, right? Use Street View and determine what's actually on the ground. If it's a trucking company, if it's a storage yard, if it's a school, what type of, give me more detail. Is it a middle school? Is it a elementary school? What is the name of the school? Just, put some more detailed information. I don't want to know the name of the owner, which you can get from the map viewer, because it'll say, owner or whatever. I want you to actually tell me what's on the ground. Is it a McDonald's, fast food, whatever the case is? So in that case, under reference, you would say Google Street View, or you would say property appraiser. If you go to the site and you found the information on the property appraiser site, you're going to include that information. So really, where you found the information, I want you to put it in the reference location. And so the first reason is because I want to see that you've found it, where you found it. And then the second one is you're going to be using this this assignment to help you, with your final project. Okay, so that way you can refer back to this assignment and look at, say, landscaping, and you'll go down and say, okay, well, where did I find that originally? And then you can refer back to 6.06.06. That make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Good deal. Any other questions?
Hey, Professor. So my my lot is a commercial intensive. So in the table, I've just been using all the like for the front, sides, and rear. I've been using it under the label CI. That's correct, right?
Yes, CI. Yeah, that's yeah.
Okay, CI. And so one of the superscripts for like the sides and rear setbacks, it just says 10 and 11. So would I just cite from the district, the end notes, would I just cite like 6.01, like whatever it says in there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So you would do 6.01, and then you could put, the superscript 10, 11. And remember, make sure that you include that information, whatever that superscript says, because again, I copied, created a PDF of those, right? You guys were able to pull that up, right? Of the subnotes. So make sure that you use that information to make a determination if there's any additional information needs to go in there. Okay, make sure you include that as well. Yeah, and one other thing too, keep in mind. So for parking regulation, when you look at parking regulations, I maybe I mentioned this in week, I think 5, when we talked about this originally, but choose the parking regulation that goes back to whatever use can be allowed for the CI zoning category, right? So the CI zoning category, just look down, look on your land use table and go, okay, what's CI allow? And then look through and then go back and relate that back to, because there are a lot of different things. So relate that back to your parking regulation. And when you do that, say, I'm making this up, 1 per, 500 square feet, 1 parking space per 500 square feet, for the building, then make sure that you include which one you used. So you can say, for the CI category, I used the parking regulation for office. Again, I'm making that up, but but hopefully you'll get the idea. In that table, in the parking regulations table, you see it broken down. It's broken down into different uses, office and commercial and manufacturing and industrial, and it tells you the different types of uses. So pick one, but make you tell me which one you picked. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Any other questions? Those are good questions. I'm glad. Okay. All right. Don't hear anything else. So with that being the case, don't forget you have your midterm that's due on Saturday. Don't be late. I don't accept late midterms. Part of the reason is because I don't accept late quizzes and midterms anyway, but I have to submit grades right after you guys take them. So make sure you do that one on time. And the only thing I recommend as far as studying for the midterm is just go back through the notes that I put, the study guides that I put on Canvas. Go back through those, take some notes, just skim through. It's going to be very similar to the quizzes that you guys took. Again, I try not to trick you. It's pretty right there. It's not, I don't like trick questions. So, because I don't like taking quizzes with trick questions. So, so if there are no more questions, then I will wish you guys a great week. And by the way, and I'll be putting out an announcement too. Next Monday evening, I've got to do I'm a guest speaker in one of the classes, so we're not going to have a quick start class. But I probably will put an older recording of one of the previous quick start classes on there for you guys to watch. And so, but feel free to contact me and schedule time with me if you need to talk to me, if you have any questions about, any of the assignments or whatnot. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor.
All right. And don't forget
Thank
your
you.
public participation paper as well. Start looking into the public participation paper and which one you're going to do the paper on. So I throw that out there.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good week, guys.
You too.
All right. See you, Matt.